BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. In today's episode, I interviewed Daniel Hangstefer. He is currently the associate head men's tennis coach at Boise State University. We dive into his impressive college coaching background, being a head coach for over 10 years. Daniel's story is nothing short but inspirational. Being born with 60% hearing loss that has impacted his ability on and off the court. But through that adversity, he's found a silver lining in giving back to the deaf community, being a silver medalist in the Deaf Olympics with his sister, and more importantly, continue to give back to the players he coaches, no matter the circumstances. And you will be inspired by his story. Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you. Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Kollman Gearhart, a former athlete and motivational coach. I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it. Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land. Well, the BTB Project yet again gets to bleed blue today, as I unbelievably humbled and honored to have who I believe is one of the best coaches in the country. And it's crazy to think that a team like Boise State would have not only one, but two great coaches, and the ties to Colorado and just a lot of the connecting of dots that today's guest and I have. And I just can't wait to get into his story. And I know it will inspire you as the listener. Mr. Daniel Hangstefer, welcome to the BTB Project.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be back and chatting with you again. So love our conversations.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. And I know that, gosh, a little over a month ago, you guys were on a quick trip here to Colorado and had a couple tough matches, and it was awesome to meet you in person. And as I mentioned, just go through these connecting of dots. At one point, you were coaching college tennis here at Metro State, and now you're coaching college tennis with a Colorado tennis icon and Luke Shields. And as you think about just how small of a world tennis is, Daniel, what does it mean to you to know the Colorado piece to what you're a part of right now?
Yeah, it's interesting how life works. I just think about how even my start in college happened, and the connections that happened through that, and then ending up getting to Colorado was an interesting story of itself. And spending 4 years at Metro State was my first head coaching job, coaching both the men and women. And that was such a great learning experience, and got to know so many people out there. A lot of the local head pros and coaches there that mean so much to me, and just the community there is very tight knit. And it was great. And then through some coaching changes and job offers after Metro, ended up in Michigan for a year, and then back out at University of Idaho for 5 years. And now I'm down at Boise State, and just thinking about all the things that happened to get me to here. And I'll be honest, I didn't even know who Luke Shields was until about a year and a half ago, when I was coaching against him, and had no idea he was even from Colorado until probably about 6 months ago. And we end up knowing all these similar people. So it's like finding a long lost friend that you never knew about, that you end up having all these connections with. So it's just funny how the world works. And it's, again, like I said, I didn't even know who Luke Shields was. And he's never talked about his own story himself. He's very humble, very private that way. It's only through other people that I learned who he was. as I'm already working with him, I'm finding out who he is. And then, yeah, I've learned a lot from him. He's been awesome to work with. He treats me like I'm a head coach, and
Mm.
I treat like him like he is the head coach because he is. But I have a lot of respect for what he does, where his mind's at, what he's trying to do. And we're very similar in a lot of ways. He just has a higher thinking of how to accomplish what we're trying to do. And so that's what I really appreciate about working with him.
Yeah, your humility. I was fortunate enough to have Coach Shields on the podcast as well, and his brother Clancy, and being able to pull the story out of him. He does not like being front and center. And what I've noticed with elite coaches, Daniel, is it's never about them. It's always about the people that they're trying to help or the mission of the program. So I want to backpedal a little bit to how you got to Boise, because here you are in the Big Sky Conference, the coach of Idaho. And I know Idaho all too well, being a former Big Sky guy myself at Northern Colorado. And you were just coach of the year, not even 1 year before coming to Boise. When I think of all of the changes that I've seen at Boise State recently and your progression as a head coach, when did it make sense to join forces and become this iconic Idaho tennis icon?
I wouldn't consider it an icon, but we're just trying to do the best we can and give our players the opportunity to be successful. And like that, what happened to Idaho for the 5 years that I was there was such a cool experience. I'll be honest, when I was hired there, interim AD at the time, he basically told me, hey, if you're just here for a year or two and you win a championship and you move on, that's great.
Mm.
Well, a year or two turned into 5 years, and it was such a great experience. I loved being there. It wasn't an easy decision to leave, but Luke Shields called me up in July last summer, and hey, my assistant is leaving, and nobody knows this yet, but my assistant, he's accepted another job to go work with his brother at Arizona. And I would like to have you be my associate head coach if you're interested in it. And I'll be honest, I laughed at first, and I said, "Well, I'm Idaho and you're Boise. That's a big history of rivalry there." Um, and I'm a head coach for 10 years now, and you're asking me that. We we get up talking on the phone for about 2 hours every day for a week. It was like a Saturday or something at the end of the week, and I said, "Hey, why don't I just hop in the car real quick and come down and see you on Sunday and Monday?" And so I did. I drove down. It's about a 6-hour drive to Boise from Moscow. So drove down and saw him, and he's, yeah, let's do it. Let's see what we can do. And we had a great visit. I think that was a July 3rd. And I remember on that trip just how hospitable everybody was and how invested everybody was. It's a July 3rd on a Monday, so the day before July 4th, a holiday. And so the athletic director heard I was on this trip, and it's not an interview or anything. It's just more, hey, let's see what this is all about. But the athletic director heard I was on the trip, so he walked all the way from his office down to the tennis office and spent 2 hours with me, just having a conversation with a potential assistant tennis coach. And I'm like, what kind of athletic director? I don't think there's an athletic director in the country that would do that. And especially at a school that is large and big as Boise State, like where does he have the time to do that on a July 3rd, the day before a holiday where he wants to spend time with his family? So that just showed me the level of commitment from everybody, from the athletic director all the way down to the athletic trainers and everybody. So it was such a cool experience. By the end of that trip, I said, Luke, let's do this. I'm on board. Yeah, here I am working with Coach Luke. It's been probably about 10 months, and yeah, we're on a very fantastic ride this year, and we've done some amazing things that this program hasn't seen yet in a long time, and we're just hoping to keep that rolling and keep building upon it.
Yeah, the history and the transparency that you just shared about how this all came about, those are how the best relationships are built, is not necessarily a forced conversation, but keeping it organic. And if there's a fit in your gut, feels like it's a fit, you go for it. And what a cool journey to hear how you were onboarded. And obviously, the team is at the time of recording, you guys are paddling. You just came off of two really tight, great victories at home and an exciting rest of the season ahead. When it comes to your career, I want to go all the way back because I'm always fascinated from my perspective. Here I am having a lot of different pieces of the Boise State program that I've been able to have conversations with, whether it's the great General Greg Patton or being able to talk to guys like another Colorado tennis guy, Paul Kinky, who transferred from Clemson to play tennis there, and talking to both Luke and Clancy and even current players right now with Sam Sipple and Jet Middleton. So I always love to know the why behind each person that I'm talking to, because I believe if you have a strong, well established why, it can overcome any how. And here you are coming from Lipscomb University as a player and really having a standout college playing career. So I would love for you to share with the listeners when it comes to what got you to do what you did as a player, what were some of the why elements that allowed you to have the career that you had?
Wow, it's a very broad question. Very good question. I still remember that my sophomore year in college or high school. My older brother took a visit to Lipscomb that he didn't, and I went with him on that visit. Um, and so it was me, my brother, and my older dad were all on that visit. And my brother didn't commit there. He ended up going to UT Chattanooga. Actually, all of my siblings, I've got 5 siblings, they all went to UT Chattanooga, and all 6 children played college tennis as well. Yeah, we're a tennis family. 3 of us were college coaches at one point or another. I'm the only one left in the college realm. But I remember that visit, and I know this sounds terrible, but at the end of the visit, I said to myself, I'm never going to go to Lipscomb. Like 2 years later, I went on a visit myself and loved it so much that I decided I'm going to go to Lipscomb. Yeah, so I ended up at Lipscomb University, had a great experience. We weren't a great team, but it was such a fun, unique experience. And all those players on that team, I'm still like best friends with. We still chat all the time and went to a wedding with one of my teammates last summer out in England. And so those relationships last for a lifetime. And so anyways, after Lipscomb, my senior year, I remember on one of our last road trips back home, there was just the sense of me that just realized how much I was going to miss this experience.
Mm.
And so I was like, I don't want to get out of this. I want to stay in this. And so I made a decision late, very late. I wanted become a college coach. And I guess there were 2 parts to that. One was that part of I'm gonna miss this, I wanna stay in this, but there was also another part that was a bad reason for it was I wanna do better than my coach. I wanna win, that kind of stuff. And that was probably the wrong reason to get into college coaching. I'm 22, 23-year-old that doesn't know anything, so no life experience. So I got into college coaching and got a graduate assistant job at a D2 school out in Texas, and the connection there was the head coach at that school was Church of Christ, which is the denomination of Lipscomb University, and he had considered applying for that job many years earlier. Well, he had met my sister at a coaches convention only a few months before that, who was my older sister was a coach at the time. And so we made that connection and I ended up becoming his grad assistant for 3 years.
Mm.
Uh, and it was during that time working with him. He's Scotland is his name. And yeah, I really appreciative of everything he taught me. One of the most intense people I've ever met, but he's also has a ton of character and he taught me the real for my why. And so it was through that experience those 3 years at Midwestern State in Texas that I went through the fire and through the furnace and was tested in so many ways. I worked 4 jobs to make ends meet while I was there, while trying to get my master's degree, um, which I never actually ended up getting, but I was because I was offered a head coaching job later and took that. It was one of those things where I realized my why shouldn't be to be better than my coach in college. My why shouldn't be because I miss my experience, right? The why should be to affect change in other people's lives.
Mm.
And so through a lot of reading and my experience there and learning from Coach Lynn that there's got to be something bigger than you. And at the time, it was about me. And that was the wrong reason. The wrong reason was to try to prove other people wrong or to try to be better than other people. And it's more about, okay, what can we do to provide opportunities that allow people to be successful, to provide opportunities to allow people to become better versions of themselves. That's and that's still something I'm still learning how to do to this day. Yeah, I haven't figured that out completely, and I don't know if I ever will, but it's every day where you're put in new situations and new circumstances where you try to figure out how to handle that particular situation better. Yeah, that's my why now.
That's well said. And I think what I've uncovered getting to know you here a little bit is sometimes, especially as former competitive tennis players, we face a lot of adversity. A lot of us have our story. Our why could sometimes be very selfish. I can certainly relate to that as I faced adversity. And when I started coaching, I wanted to be like a coach I never had. I wanted to undo some of my experiences and to provide a platform to allow people to become the best version of themselves. But the selfish component was still there where I was just like, man, I was really bitter about some of the coaches that I had. A lot of them told me that I wasn't gonna be able to play college tennis or
Yeah.
want to accommodate my goals. And it just frustrated me. So I appreciate your transparency of you being able to catch yourself knowing that, and it might have taken a while and you're still trying to figure it out today. It's about helping other people. And one thing that I'm picking up here, Daniel, is I saw back in your educational days that you got a minor in biblical studies, it looks like. Hey, I'm a man of faith, man. I don't know where I would be without leaning into something greater than myself. I would love for you to share how much does faith play into this journey that you've been on, man?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think faith is probably it, it provides a bedrock and a foundation in your life, right? And so it always points to something that's greater than you.
Mm.
And so that's the bigger picture out there. And I think that's important. And I think having that moral compass in your life to help you make good ethical decisions is extremely important. And so if you always have a compass in your life that points to something bigger than yourself, I think that provides a good solid foundation for you. And that can translate when you live by those principles. I think that provides a good moral compass for your team as well without having to share it. So it's a
Okay.
lot of more about live the life that you're preaching. So
Yeah.
it is my belief that when you have everything in your life in order around you, it's a lot easier for you to compete on court. So if you're constantly, worried about, oh, I did this last night, I did that last night, I did this 3 nights ago, and then you're competing on court, it's hard because those thoughts creep up in the back of your head at maybe really critical moments in the match. But if you don't have to worry about all of that stuff anyways. It's a lot easier if you just focus on the match. And I really do believe every component of your life affects every other component of your life, if that makes sense. And so that's something I try to, preach to the team and more, not so much preach, but just live by the principles that I'm trying to push. So I think it's really hard if coaches are out there saying, don't go out and party, but they're going out and party themselves. And so I think living by, so that goes back to that your question is principles and faith and having something bigger than yourself is part of what helps you live by the standards you're trying to implement in your team.
Yeah, and a lot of people that I've coached and come across, it's amazing that they come to us for advice or wisdom in their respective sport. But a lot of the things where I've been most impressionable is by not what I'm saying, it's by what I'm doing.
Yep.
And being able to keep my mouth shut and practice what I preach on a day in and day out basis is what is the most impressionable thing we can do as coaches in my understanding. But the adversity piece, and I think that whether it was your studies or how you were raised, having a lot of siblings, one thing that was amazing for me to uncover about you, Daniel, is the hearing aid and being 60% deaf. No idea. And a lot of people probably don't know that. But I'd love for you to share with the listeners when it comes to your upbringing, what you've done as a player, some of the things you've had to overcome with just the deck of cards you've been dealt, and maybe have it be around this amazing accomplishment that you got to have with your sister representing our country and doing something extraordinary.
Yeah. No, I'll be honest, piece of my life has been it's not been an easy thing for me to accept my whole life. So just to give the listeners a little bit of background, my parents had 6 children, and this extends back even to the story even more. But my father actually, when my mother was pregnant with my oldest brother, my father was actually diagnosed with brain cancer, given 6 months to live. And so that's another whole story in of itself. But
Mm.
he ended up living and is cancer free to this day with no symptoms, whatever. But he ended up having 5 more children after that. But the oldest brother, yeah, they didn't catch it for a little while, but he was born with about a 50 to 60% hearing loss. And so then after that, every child was tested very quickly and every child was fine. So the next sister, she was born normal. And then the next brother was fine. And then the next brother was fine. And then it got to me. And so I was same, born about 50, 60% with hearing loss. And then my youngest sister as well. So 3 of the 6 children were born with about a 60% hearing loss. And it's slowly getting worse and worse as the years go by, but that's life, right?
Mm.
Um, Thankfully, the technology keeps getting better every year. But yeah, so I wear hearing aids. Just got these ones back in last May, and they're awesome. They got Bluetooth, so I can play some music while the guys are playing, practicing or whatnot. Not that I do that, but I can take phone calls directly. And a lot of people think I'm crazy because they're like, "What's this guy? He's like walking around with no ear pods."
Talking to himself. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it took a long time because when I was growing up, the hearing aids were these big clunky things, and it was homeschooled, but we were involved in a lot of extracurricular activities, and baseball was my first love. So being on a team with these big clunky hearing aids and stuff, and the position I hated the most was catcher because you have the helmet over, and you try to rip that off, it would rip the hearing
Wow.
aid too. So I primarily played second base. And my goal was just to be really good, like better than everybody else, because I didn't want like that to be a reason for why I was sitting on the bench. So yeah, I was a good baseball player. I was a good tennis player, but it was always one of those things like when you're playing tennis in the Southeast in Tennessee, it's really hot and humid there, and sweat's pouring down and getting in the hearing aids, and then the hearing aids stop working, and then you gotta play without the hearing aids, and you're like, basically deaf at that point. You can't hear the ball bounce and stuff.
I remember you
Um,
telling me that, like, when we initially
yeah.
spoke, that part of what you did with your sister, which I know you'll get into, is you can't wear your hearing aids to compete in the Deaf Olympics, but the sensory component, I just find it really challenging in itself to play the game, let alone not be able to hear the ball bounce. So pull back the curtain there on what it's like to try to compete when you lose that part of your sensory.
It's different for sure. Yeah, so when I was at going back to that my first job when I was at GA, I met one of the jobs I was working was the assistant at a club, and apparently the head pro Johnny, he was a Deaf Olympics tennis coach back in the '80s, and he noticed I was wearing hearing aids, and he's like, "Have you ever heard of the Deaf Olympics?" And I'm like, "No, what is that?" And I'm still not, like, comfortable at that point, like, talking about my hearing and stuff, and,
Yeah.
"Well, you need to check into this, like, we went to Germany, like, we played all these players, and they're all, like, really good players, some of them have ATP points, like, you would love this. And so he convinced me to check it out. And I was trying to keep it a secret, not letting my family know and all this stuff. And so I started checking it out. And somehow my sister finds out that I was talking to the Deaf Olympics committee. And so the committee said, well, this is what you need to do this. And so we did. And we ended up going to Bulgaria for the Deaf Olympics. And it was such a eye-opening experience and made me own this part of my life, right? And made me accept this part of my life and started to learn a little bit of sign language. Don't really know it at all, but it has helped me be able to communicate certain things to my players now from 3 courts away without having to yell at them. Do you need some water? What's your name and stuff? And so, yeah, it's really helped me a lot of ways. But yeah, that experience at the Deaf Olympics. So you can't wear your hearing aids, or if you have a cochlear implant, you can't wear that either.
Mm.
So you're basically at the mercy of whatever your hearing is in that situation. They have a referee in a chair on every court. And one of the most difficult things is that you can't hear the ball bounce and you can't hear it come off the strings. And so you don't really know what spin they are unless you're watching just visually, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell if it's a flat serve or a slice serve. The hardest part was when it would be a let, like when it would hit the net and it would go in, but you can't see it. And normally in those situations, like when you can't see it, you hear it. So there'll be times where you would hit an ace and you're like, come on, let's go. And then the ref just, no, that was a let. You got to replay it. Or you would hit a serve and you play this 10-ball rally and you can't see the ref because you're focused on the ball. And then you win the point, you're like, come on, let's go. Or you lost the point, you're like, but then the ref is like, it's a let, redo it. It was a let. So it was such a fun and unique experience, like going through all of that. And so, yeah, me and my sister, we ended up taking the silver medal at that. And so I have that hanging out on my wall at home. And that was such a fun, unique experience. Losing in the finals was a heartbreak to Germany, but we got revenge on them 2 years later at the World Championship. And
There you
we
go.
took
It's
the gold at the World Championships. So yeah, like it was such a fun and unique experience doing that for 3 years. I haven't done it since then, but that'll be something that sticks with me for the rest of my life, especially to do it with my sister.
Yeah, I saw a really cool image of you and your sister holding the American flag with the medals on, and
Yeah.
there's even another little podcast or YouTube video out there that is no noise, and it's an interview for the Deaf Olympics that you guys are on. And I'm like, wow, this is awesome, man. Like,
Yeah.
what a cool story. And I give you props, Daniel, because I've had this on my heart a lot recently. We, as men, we always try to be the tough guy. Being vulnerable is not an option because that's not cool. That's just the status quo. But I'm finding recently that our true strength comes in our vulnerability. And you being able to find some ways to accept some of these things that you've been dealt, I think what it's done is that it's given you an extended amount of confidence that's resonating to the people that you're helping each and every day. And that's so awesome that you're taking this quote unquote circumstance or disability, whatever you want to call it, and you've used it to your advantage to where you're communicating with your players from 2 courts away. Or when a kid comes to you with a tough day, maybe it's academically or their girlfriend just broke up with them. I know that you're not trying to compare cards with your players, but you've been through enough to where the guys probably feel comfortable coming to you because they know that you're going to find a way to understand them. And I want to circle back into your coaching success because you'll never give yourself the credit, but man, everywhere you've been, ITA South Central Region Men's Assistant Coach of the Year in 13, South Central Region Women's Coach of the Year 2017, Big Sky that we talked about in 23, two-time Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference when you were at Metro in 16 and 17. Everywhere you've gone, you've been acknowledged as a great coach. And I know this is a hard question to answer, but I think it would be really powerful for you to let us in to the mind of how you operate as a coach, because I've seen a lot of great coaches, but when it comes to your success, why do you believe you are respected as a coach?
Yeah, I don't know how to answer that, to be honest. The mind is such a funny thing. It doesn't tend to acknowledge those successes. I think it tends to really focus on negativity, and that's something that we have to kind of battle all the time. And I appreciate you mentioning all those things because honestly, I don't even think about those things. I think about the bad day I had 2 days ago. You know, like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm constantly thinking, well, how do I fix those things from 2 days ago, and how do we make it better? Um, and so, yeah, honestly, I had forgotten all about those awards. So I appreciate you mentioning that. It's good to think back and remember those things, to remember, okay, I guess life is going pretty good. And I think the goal is always to be better. And even right before this phone call that Coach Luke Shields and I we were on the call on the phone, and we're just trying to think about how do we fix some things from our match yesterday? How do we get better from our match yesterday? How do we deal with certain things a little better? How do we deal with this? How do we deal with that? And so I think that growth mindset is probably one of the most important things you can do. Constantly thinking about what's next. You're constantly thinking about do we do better next time, and how do we do better today. I think that if you constantly have that in your mind, that growth mindset, okay, constantly thinking, and maybe that's why I didn't get sleep last night because I'm trying to think, okay, how do we get better after, even though we won 4-3 match yesterday against a pretty good team. These were all the things we got to do better for next time. They're all the things that we got to do better for tomorrow. I think the answer really is a growth mindset. Fix the mistakes, keep working on being better, and celebrate the little wins. Yeah, we weren't particularly happy with our win yesterday, but the thing to remember is value winning, right? And
Yeah.
so every little win that you get, you got to value it and value the good things, but also think about how do you get better? Where do we go from here?
Yeah. Being able to give yourself some credit where you can. I know that we live in a society that sometimes looks at when we give ourselves credit as possibly cocky or ego. So sometimes you used it as a metaphor is sometimes you're turning up more of the negative volume or the criticism volume and being tough on yourself rather than the positive volume. But yet as coaches, we're always trying to help our players be positive in those stressful moments. So it's a little bit counterintuitive, but I know it's a tough question to answer, Daniel. And I think when people have asked me about that, I go to, hey, the accolades are great, but it's the thank you cards, it's the wedding announcements, it's the calling former players on their birthday just to tell them hi and see how they're doing. Unfortunately, a few funerals or tough phone calls from parents of kids that I've coached being like, "Hey, my daughter's gone." Those are the types of things where I'm just like, "Man, you never realize how much of an impact you are until you have those types of moments." And sometimes that's in the form of being acknowledged with an award, or it's being acknowledged by the people that you're trying to help. When it's all said and done, Daniel, I think it's really neat the lineage in your family of not only tennis, but also tennis coaches. And you're still at this well over 10 years into this, doing it a long time. I'm just curious from coach to coach, how do you want to be remembered when this is all said and done as a college tennis coach?
It's a good question. It's back to my Lipscomb days. The coach that recruited me, Len Griffith, I didn't play for him. He ended up taking a different position at the school after I committed, but so I still got to know him over those 4 years. And such a great guy. He's left such a footprint on that program and in that community, and eventually to where the new facility that was built was partially named after him.
Mm,
And the year COVID hit, he ended up passing away on court from a heart attack. He was on the court when it happened, and that hit really hard, I think, for every single person that knew him. And one of my former teammates, he did the because it was during COVID, the funeral was actually a drive-through funeral. So all the cars would drive through, and I couldn't make it out there because I was out in Nashville and I'm stuck in Idaho during COVID. But my former teammate, he did the video for the funeral, and to see the number of cars that went through, well over, it looked like it was well over 200, 300 cars that did a drive-through funeral. Um, and the impact that he had and the legacy that he had still extends to even after his death 3 years later. And it was interesting. Actually, I was offered that job 2 summers ago, and his wife actually reached out to me and asked me to take the job.
Wow.
She said, "Lynn always wanted you to have this job."
Wow.
But it was really hard to turn the job down. I just wasn't in the right place. The timing wasn't right. So I had to turn it down, and it stuck with Idaho for another year. And then they got a new coach, and he's doing really well. So just thinking about just what the impact that Lynn Griffith had, I think, as coaches and players and people and human beings in general, we're always trying to think about, well, what legacy are we going to leave behind? And so I think that's what drives me a little bit each and every day is, okay, the decision that I make today and how I act today and the impact that I have today on these players today, will that relationship remain 10 years from now? And will it remain 20 years from now? And how will they remember me? Will they remember me as their friend or somebody to be respected or somebody that was a butthead or what? Like it's, yeah, you have to figure out what you want to be remembered by and allow that to be what drives your actions. And are you a man of your word or do you break your word or are you a hypocrite or are you not? Do you live by the standards you preach or not? I think that's important. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. I think like I said, the legacy that Len Griffith left behind is so far reaching and powerful. And even after his death, he's still affecting change in people's lives. And it's a pretty cool story. So,
Nah, that's a incredible story, and I certainly appreciate you sharing. And I got a couple more for you here, Daniel, that it makes me think of. Let's go back to that moment. I got a lot of people that listen to this podcast that struggle with self doubt, insecurity, trying to figure out their why, digging deep into some tough situations in their life. And that moment that you shared, being a young guy playing some baseball, let's say that you're driving around Boise, Idaho, and you see a little league game going on. You see a catcher that is just trying to take off their helmet, and you see the similar hearing aids that you wore growing up, and their team just gets absolutely blown off the field, tons of insecurity and self doubt. And you have an opportunity to go up to that young man, sit him down on the bench, and have a conversation a bit. You've seen a lot since that time that you played baseball. And knowing what you know now, Daniel, what would you do to encourage that young man?
yeah, I had the opportunity to, when I was at Metro, the baseball coach and the athletic department hosted a summer camp for deaf children. And it was such a cool experience. And they actually invited me to speak to the campers 1 week. And so this was shortly after I had gone to the Deaf Olympics. And that was probably one of my most memorable opportunities to speak with people that are in a similar boat as me. And you're speaking to about 100 kids that are hard of hearing or deaf and having a shared similar experience as them. And they're looking up to you and going, "Oh, this guy won a gold medal," like all this stuff. And I'm like, "No, I'm the same as you. I'm going through the same things as you." And it's just a lot of perseverance and setting big goals for yourself and trying to, I don't want to say prove people wrong, but try to prove yourself right. Try to prove that you can be the best and
Mm.
doing what it takes every day to be the best. And not letting limitations get in the way. I get so inspired when I see videos online of, I think this is probably about 10, 15 years ago, there was an article in the tennis magazine of a 10-year-old kid who didn't have legs, but he's playing tennis. So
Mm.
that article inspired me so much. Overcoming obstacles in your life is, I think that's something to be desired and something to prove that you can be successful in regardless of your situation. And you can be the best given your situation. And like, we actually have a wheelchair tennis here in Boise, and meeting the people in the community, they come out to our matches and they're normal human beings that are just living their life and they're being the best at what they do. And I don't think they think a thing of it. They're just trying to do the best they can, and it's normal. It's who they are. It's who I am, and it's who you are. And we all have struggles in our life. We all have insecurities. We all, whether it's physical or mental or whatever, and that's who you are. And you're gonna have struggles regardless of whether you have a hearing loss or not. You have to figure out how to take every day and be the best on that day. And when you're having a bad day and you work through it, well, you got better that day. And that's something that translates to coaching as well. We don't always have the best day on the court at practice, do we? And when you have a hard day on court at practice, well, that's actually the day you can improve the most on, because you learned how to overcome a difficult situation that day, or you learn to work through a difficult situation that day. That's something I tell my team and my players all the time. When you have a bad day, well, that's actually the best day, because when you figure, if you have the right mindset, if you just lay back and you're like, oh, it's a bad day, like I'll be better tomorrow. Well, you probably didn't improve much that day. And then on the days that you're playing really well, well, those are actually the days that you didn't really improve much because you didn't have to struggle that day. You didn't overcome something difficult that day because everything was easy that day.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that when you're going through a difficult day, like those are the days you need to embrace the most, because those are the days you can become a better version of yourself if you have the right mindset and if you recognize that I'm having a tough day. I'm going to get through this. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to move my feet a little bit more. I'm going to try to be a little more positive, even though I'm struggling. Then you become a better, tougher version of yourself. So,
Tip my hat to you, Daniel. What an incredible heart and perspective that you have to help others. Totally blown away. The BTB project it has been built for folks like yourself to share what is possible, no matter the circumstances. And with that said, man, I believe player's coach is not a term that's often used, but you are a player's coach. You are someone that is changing a lot of people's lives, and arguably the best college coaching tandem right now between you and Coach Luke. I wish Boise State nothing but continued success. And Daniel Hangstefer, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today on the BTB project.
hey, thanks for having me. It's always great to chat with you. So,
Awesome, man. Best of luck to you guys. All right.
thanks. Appreciate it.
What a tremendous conversation with Daniel Hangstefer, and learn about his journey from college player to college coach to overcoming what he's experienced with his hearing loss. And despite those circumstances, still giving back in a way that is impacting an incredible amount of lives. What he does as a coach at Boise State University is unprecedented. And for him, with his head coaching background and his pedigree, to join forces with another great coach to create a tandem, I believe will allow this program to do extraordinary things. Listen, if Daniel's story was something that impacted you, do me a favor and like and subscribe to the BTB Project. Better yet, share this message with someone that needs inspiration, that needs hope. At the end of the day, we are one community. And it's stories like Daniel's that impact us in more ways than we could ever imagine. And it's about paying the mission forward and doing this as a community. As always, I'm proud of each and every one of you. And until next time, take care.
You're told I'll be a harder temptation.